You're sitting in your office, celebrating the biggest deal of your career, when your business partner, the one who swore loyalty over 100 handshakes and late-night strategy sessions, walks in with lawyers and a revised contract that cuts you out entirely. Or maybe it's your mentor, the one who promised to open doors, now whispering poison about you to investors because your success makes his legacy look dim. Perhaps it's family, blood relatives who smile at Thanksgiving while secretly routing capital from your accounts, justifying it because you have enough. This isn't fiction. This is Tuesday in the world of power. And here's what Nietzsche understood that you've been conditioned to ignore. Betrayal isn't some tragic anomaly that happens to the unlucky. Betrayal is the governing principle of human hierarchy. It's not the exception. It's the mechanism through which power actually operates. And the reason you're bleeding right now, the reason you didn't see it coming, is because you've been infected with the herd's most profitable lie. That loyalty is real, unconditional, and virtue-based. Let me walk you through why betrayal cuts deeper than any market crash or failed venture. It's not the money. You can rebuild capital. It's not even the setback. You can recover momentum. What destroys people is the psychological fracture, the shattering of your operating framework. You built your empire on a foundation of assumed loyalty. And when that collapses, everything you thought you knew about human nature collapses with it. I've watched billionaires lose fortunes and shrug it off in months. I've watched those same men spend decades unable to recover from a partner's betrayal because it didn't just take their assets, it took their ability to trust their own judgment. Look at the pattern. Every major business implosion, every empire that crumbled from within, every fortune that evaporated overnight. Trace it back and you'll find someone close, someone trusted, someone who had access. The corporate world is a graveyard of partnerships destroyed not by competition, but by the person sitting across from you at the conference table. Why? Because proximity to power doesn't create loyalty. It creates resentment. Here's the trap society set for you since childhood. You were taught that loyalty is a virtue, that standing by people regardless of circumstance is noble, that trust should be given freely to prove you're a good person. This is slave morality, and it's deliberately designed to make you exploitable. The herd needs you to believe in unconditional loyalty because your vulnerability is their security. When you trust blindly, you're predictable. When you're predictable, you're controllable. When you're controllable, you're farmable. The system doesn't want masters who verify and strategize. It wants trusting servants who get slaughtered and call it honor. Every Disney movie, every corporate team-building seminar, every family gathering where you're guilt-tripped into overlooking red flags, it's all conditioning. They're installing software in your mind that makes you the perfect victim. But here's the part that makes you uncomfortable. The truth you've been avoiding because it implicates people you love. Those closest to you resent your ascension, not despite your success, but because of it. Nietzsche called this ressentiment, a deep, festering psychological poison, where the weak cannot create their own power, so they derive satisfaction from tearing down yours. Your business partner doesn't betray you because he's evil. He betrays you because every day he watches you execute at a higher level. He feels his own inadequacy reflected back at him. Your mentor doesn't sabotage you out of random malice. He does it because your rise exposes that his methods are outdated, that his era is ending, that he's becoming irrelevant. Your family doesn't steal from you because they're broke. They do it because your wealth makes their mediocrity unbearable to witness. They need you to fall, not to elevate themselves, but simply to stop feeling so small. This is the mechanism. The weak don't celebrate your victories. They tolerate them until they can't anymore, and then they strike. And society has given them the perfect weapon, your own belief in loyalty. You won't see it coming because you've been taught that suspicion is toxic, that strategic distance is cold, that protecting yourself is somehow betraying them first. So you leave yourself exposed and you call it love. You give access to your accounts, your strategies, your vulnerabilities, and you call it trust. Then when the knife goes in, you're shocked. You shouldn't be. You were taught to be prey. The herd wants you broken by betrayal because a broken person returns to the fold. They need you traumatized, questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong. That's the trap. The moment you internalize betrayal as your failure, you've accepted slave morality. You'll spend years in therapy dissecting your trust issues, your attachment patterns, your childhood wounds, while the person who betrayed you moves on without a second thought. They're not lying awake at night. They're spending what they took from you. Nietzsche saw this clearly. Betrayal doesn't happen because you're defective. It happens because you accumulated something worth taking. Your business grew, your influence expanded, your wealth became visible. And proximity to power creates a specific kind of poison in people who lack the strength to build their own. They watched you ascend, they smiled at your success, they celebrated at your table. And with every step you climbed, the gap between you and them widened, and that gap filled with resentment. Not the hot anger they could express, the cold, patient hatred that waits for the perfect moment. This is ressentiment. The weak can't compete on your level, so they don't. They burrow close instead. They make themselves indispensable. They learn your systems, your contacts, your strategies. They position themselves as loyal soldiers in your empire, and you believe it because you're generating the value. You're so focused on building that you don't notice they're studying, not to contribute, to extract. And the moment extraction becomes more profitable than proximity, they execute. Clean, surgical, often legal. Here's what the herd will never tell you. Betrayal is information. Pure, unfiltered data about who can handle your level and who can't. Most people are operating systems designed for mediocrity. They function perfectly fine at a certain altitude. But you take them higher, into thinner air where the pressure changes and their code breaks. They malfunction. And instead of admitting they can't breathe up here, they blame you for the altitude. You became too successful, too demanding, too changed. They construct an entire narrative where your growth was actually your moral failing, and their betrayal was actually justice. Let them. Because here's the master's move, Amor Fati. Love the betrayal. Not in some therapeutic forgiveness seminar way. Strategically love it. That business partner who stole your clients and started a competing firm. He just identified himself as someone who couldn't scale with you. He removed himself from your future empire. That family member who sided with your enemies when you needed support. She just showed you exactly how much her loyalty was worth before you put her in your will. That mentor who took credit for your work. He just revealed that his ceiling is your floor. Every betrayal is a stress test you didn't know you needed. The Übermensch, the architect of his own values, doesn't collapse when betrayed. He recalibrates. He looks at the rubble and asks what structural weakness allowed this. Not in self-blame, in engineering assessment. Where was the single point of failure? What system depended too heavily on one person's character? What asset was accessible to someone whose incentives weren't aligned with yours? Then he rebuilds, but differently, stronger, more distributed, anti-fragile. Anti-fragility is the goal, Nassim Taleb's concept, but pure Nietzschean spirit. You don't build systems that resist betrayal, you build systems that gain from it. Your business shouldn't crumble because one partner leaves. It should have redundancies, separated authorities, compartmentalized information. Your wealth shouldn't be vulnerable because one advisor turns. It should be structured across entities, jurisdictions, instruments that no single actor can compromise. Your reputation shouldn't depend on any one relationship. It should be built on documented results that speak louder than any saboteur's whispers. This is strategic paranoia, and it's not pathology. It's pattern recognition. The herd calls it trust issues. Masters call it due diligence. You verify everything. You document everything. You create paper trails and digital footprints and third-party confirmations for every significant transaction. Not because you assume everyone will betray you, because you assume everyone could, and you refuse to make it easy. This isn't cynicism, it's respect for human nature. People act according to incentives. When betraying you becomes more rewarding than staying loyal, most will betray. So you structure incentives where loyalty pays better, continuously, measurably, undeniably. Drop a comment right now if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, and tell me what you learned from it. Not the therapeutic lesson, the strategic one. What system did you change? What access did you revoke? What pattern did you start watching for? Because the masters learn from collective wisdom. Your betrayal story isn't just your scar, it's intelligence for everyone reading this. Share it below. Your insight could save someone else a fortune or a decade. Now here's the transvaluation of values Nietzsche demanded. The herd defines loyalty as unconditional allegiance regardless of circumstances. That's slave morality. It keeps you bound to people who stopped serving your mission years ago. Master morality redefines loyalty as earned through consistent aligned action over time. Loyalty isn't what someone promises. It's what they do when betraying you would benefit them and nobody would know. That's the only test that matters, and most people fail it. Not because they're evil, because they're human, and humans optimize for self-interest. You should want people around you who optimize for self-interest. You just need to make sure their self-interest aligns with yours through structure, not sentiment. This is how you become betrayal-proof. Not by finding people who would never betray you. Those don't exist at scale. By building an empire where betrayal costs more than it pays. Where your systems continue without any individual. Where your knowledge is distributed but compartmentalized. Where your wealth is protected by legal structures that make theft unprofitable. Where your reputation is built on third-party verified results, not personal testimonials. You make betrayal a bad investment. And when it still happens, because it will, you don't mourn. You extract value. That person just showed you a vulnerability in your system. Fix it. They just freed up a position for someone hungrier. Fill it. They just gave you a masterclass in what warning signs you missed. Study it. Every betrayal makes you sharper, harder to crack, more valuable to those who remain. The weak are destroyed by betrayal because they have nothing else. The strong are refined by it because they built themselves to transform damage into data. If you're done being the herd's victim and ready to think like a master, subscribe now. This channel decodes the philosophy they don't want you understanding for modern power. Hit subscribe to escape slave morality and build an empire the weak can't touch. Join the 1% who refuse comfortable lies and demand uncomfortable truth. Because out here, betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your real education.